It looks like we are live. Welcome everyone to the Committee on Taxation. We will start out as we typically do with our introductions, and we'll start, since Senator Libby's not here, start with Senator Pouliot.
Good morning, Senator Matt Pouliot. Pleased to be joining you from my warm office in Augusta, Maine. Represent Senate District 15, the towns of Augusta, China, Oakland City, and Bassboro.
All right, and Representative Bickford.
Good morning, I'm Representative Bruce Bickford. I represent District 63, which is part of Auburn.
Excellent, and Representative Carmichael, welcome.
Good morning, I'm Mickey Carmichael. I represent House District 137, which is 22 communities in Hancock, Washington, and Norfolk counties.
And Representative Collins.
Good morning. I'm Representative Benjamin Collins, representing part of the city of Portland, District 42.
Excellent. And Representative Gramlich will be in and out. I don't see her with us at the moment. Representative Hanley.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Hanley. I represent District 87, which are the towns of Pittston, Alna, Westcasset, and Randolph.
All right, and Representative Stackis, welcome.
Morning, I'm Joel Setkus. I serve the fine people of District 105, which are the towns of Canaan, Palmyra, St. Albans, Ripley, Cambridge, and Heartland.
And Representative Matlock.
Good morning. I'm Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Creehaven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
Great. And Representative Perry.
I think he might be jumping on in a minute.
Okay, I don't see him.
He's trying to get on. Yeah.
Representative Sachs.
Good morning, everyone, including Cloud Collins. My name is Melanie Sachs. I represent House District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownell. Thanks.
And Representative Terry.
Good morning. I'm Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west side of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair on this committee.
Excellent. And I'm Senator Ben Chipman. I represent Senate District 27, which is part of the city of Portland, and serve as Senate Chair of the committee. Would also like to introduce Lena Braun, who's our committee clerk, as well as Julie Jones, our committee analyst. And before we get started, is there anything that you have for us, Representative Terry or Lena?
No, I think we're good. Just a quick note that next Tuesday, or the first part of our first part of our day will be a confirmation hearing for the State Board of Tax Appeals. So if, again, everybody can get there on time, then we can get our work done quickly. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, great. So we'll, I guess we'll start out with, we have work sessions on 3 bills today. So why don't we open up the work session on we're going to be taking them actually in this order. We should let folks know that. We'll be taking up LD 1423 first, followed by LD 798, followed by LD 1678. So we'll open up the work session on LD 1423. This is an act to prevent and reduce tobacco use by ensuring adequate funding for tobacco use prevention and cessation programs, and by raising the tax on tobacco products, and to provide funding to reduce disparities in health outcomes based on certain factors, sponsored by Representative McCrate. And if you want to walk us through this bill, Julie, I know Representative McCrate has an amendment she's going to present to us, but if you can start us out, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you. All 3 of the bills that you're working today are carried over from last year. The chart that I emailed to you, and I can share it. In fact, maybe this is a good time to share this chart. Okay. Make it a little bigger. You got the chart now?
Yep, we can see it. Yep.
All 3 of the bills that you're working today, the sponsors have been working on them over the interim and have new proposed amendments for you today. The way I've organized the chart is I left the row in there that existed there at the end of the session last year So there's a description of LD 1423, for instance, and at the end it says, because this bill, the committee did vote on this bill, it was a divided report last session. It was reported out, but in the process of going back and forth between the House and the Senate, it ended up being recommitted to the Taxation Committee. So I don't know if there were ever actually any votes in the House and the Senate on it. I forgot to look that up, but it was recommitted back to tax before the end of the session and then carried over to this year. I think I mentioned in each of these bills today, the sponsor has submitted a proposed committee amendment. So there's a line below last year's information that will indicate that it'll say second regular session over here in this column with the date of the work session of 1/27/22. And then in this instance, Representative McCrate's proposed committee amendment, which I'll just explain briefly to you to this one, because this one's relatively easy to explain. And then you may want to talk to her about what she's suggesting for you as an amendment as well. The bill last year provided for some increases in cigarette tax and tobacco products taxes, and it contained provisions to require that funding for the state tobacco prevention and control program be at least, well, there were amounts in last year's bill, $7 million for tobacco use and prevention, and $10 million for research identity, reduce health disparities. These are all eliminated in Representative McCrate's proposed committee amendment this year. So the proposed amendment makes no changes with regard to tobacco taxes, but it does provide the provision that was also in last year's bill, that the funding for the tobacco prevention and control program may not be the lesser of the annual revenue collected on the sales of tobacco products, plus available funds in the Fund for Healthy Maine for this purpose, and the amount of funding recommended for state tobacco control programs as determined by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So the feds apparently come up with recommended levels of funding for tobacco cessation, and this would require Maine to have the lesser of either funds available or the federal amount recommended.
Okay. So maybe we should hear from the sponsor, because I believe she's got an amendment that changes the bill quite a bit from what was proposed. So if we could bring in Representative McCrate and present the amendment that you've been working on.
Thank you, Senator Chipman. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
You just never know with Hollywood Squares. I want to say thank you to the committee, to all of you, to Julie for helping with the amendment, for everybody I was working with over the interim to come up with an amendment to the bill. So I have, I wrote up some testimony, which I couldn't enter because there's no place for a work session, but I sent it to Julie and to your clerk and to chairs, so you'd have it to distribute. Mm-hmm. So I'll just run through it if that's okay.
Yeah, do you have that, Julie? Is there any way you can put that up on the screen while she goes through it with us?
I just sent it, so maybe not.
I think it's just her written testimony anyway, so we'll be listening to the same thing.
Okay, I didn't know if there was like an actual amendment or something that we'd look at, but that's fine.
No,
I do have the amendment that I can put up.
Yeah, the amendment is just what you got earlier this week.
Yeah, do you want me to post it while she's reading?
Well, yeah, so folks can look at it if we want, I don't know if people want to see the language of the amendment, but if you have it, it would be maybe helpful.
Yep. Great. Yep, so you should have it now.
Okay.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
So Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, esteemed members of the Tax Committee. I'm Jay McCreight, representing Harpswell, West Bath, and Northeast Brunswick. And I introduced the bill that Julie just described last year because of the importance of preventing kids from starting use of tobacco products and of having help available to those trying to quit. I introduced it because it's a matter of public health. As we discussed, tobacco use is addictive, particularly for the young, and has devastating impacts in terms of illness, and such as cancer, lung disease, diabetes, heart disease, and in terms of costs for employees and for healthcare costs impacting all of us. However, as Julie described, feedback from those concerned about the bill, I wanted to have some time to come up with an amendment. And again, thank you for that. So the new title is an act to amend tobacco use prevention and cessation funding to align it with recommendations of the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The amendment removes the tax increase portion of the original bill and focuses only on the appropriate levels of funding for our tobacco control programs. This amendment focuses not on increasing cost of tobacco products, but on ensuring sufficient funding for our prevention and cessation programs. So here's where the numbers come in. Our tobacco control program is currently underfunded. The US CDC recommends that Maine's tobacco control program be funded at $15.9 million per year. It's currently funded at $8.4 million. Tobacco related revenue is $188.5 million. And you'll see that the recommended level of funding for prevention and cessation of $15.9 million is only 8% of tobacco related revenue. I propose to you that it's reasonable to dedicate 8% of those revenues to evidence-based prevention, tobacco prevention and treatment. The tobacco industry, meanwhile, spends over $40 million per year to promote tobacco products. The goal of the amendment then is to make use of the funding coming from the current tobacco product sales to take the strong action needed to prevent tobacco use in the first place and to help people trying to stop. Having the appropriate level of funding for evidence-based prevention and cessation programs will help get us there. As fewer people start and more people quit, sales will obviously go down, revenue will go down, and the need for funding will go down. But for right now, I'm proposing that we should be funding at the CDC recommended level to help prevent starting in the first place and to avoid the terrible outcomes tobacco product use causes. And I would just note conversation yesterday about the funds not being spent anyway. The only time they weren't spent was under a previous administration when about $1 million of the fund was not allowed to be spent. So it's being fully spent now, but it's not sufficient.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Representative McCreight. Any questions from members of the committee of Representative McCreight about what she's just talked about or the amendment? It's like, do you have your hand up, Senator Pouliot?
Yeah, thank you. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but this seems to be with the amendment, no increase on tobacco tax. So no tax increase, but just a kind of to solidify what really this was supposed to be used for anyway, the Fund for Healthy Maine, which continually gets rated to put money elsewhere. Is this a correct summation?
Exactly. Thank you, Senator.
Okay. I would be in favor of that.
Okay. Julie, I don't know if you could take this off the screens. We can see everybody because it's hard to see all the hands up in case I don't want to miss anybody. I think you had your hand up next, Representative Bickford.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the amendment. The only concern I have, I don't know if you lost me or not.
No, we still got you.
We have you.
Oh, I see it. Okay. The only question I have is why would Fund for Healthy Maine with tobacco taxes being used to pay childcare, for example, that does nothing to encourage smoking cessation. Is there anyone that can answer that? Why that fund is used for more than just tobacco cessation?
do you know Representative McCray or? we could-
I don't have the answer. I know I have the frustration. I mean, these are all important programs, but we're talking about tobacco issues right now. And this
Right.
would make sure that that funding is used, the tobacco cessation prevention funding is used as it's intended.
Perfect. And can I follow up, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I do like the amendment. I like that it's not increasing the taxes. When we increase the taxes on packaged tobacco and vape and everything else by 115%, the people that could afford it the least were the ones getting penalized. We were going after the poor. I mean, the most, and I know because I work in that business, I see them every day. They will buy their tobacco before they will feed themselves or their kids. That is an addictive drug, as
Right.
bad as heroin has been described. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion because I really like the amendment. I'm gonna make a motion ought to pass as amended.
Second,
So we have a motion by Representative Bickford to pass as amended, seconded by Representative Matlack. Further discussion, Representative Perry, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Since I was a pretty vocal opponent to this bill, I thought I should speak. And a lot of my concern was the same as what Representative Bickford has seen. I serve a rather low-income crowd at my store, and as he described it is exactly as it is. But I also understand the other side of the bill that if price can keep people from starting, we avoid that addiction in the first place. But I'd also like to thank the sponsor of the bill, Representative McCray, because she has kept me in the loop from day one thoroughly on everything that was going on and turned over every stone to find alternatives or additions that would help retailers and help make this work. And she's just so pleasant. It makes you want to go along with everything she says. But and she hasn't given up. And as a store owner who sells this awful stuff, I celebrate every customer who quits. And so I will gladly support this, because if we can help some of our customers quit or help the young people never start, I'm 100% for it. So thank you for your work and bringing forward a compromise we can all get behind, it looks like.
Great. Thank you for that, Representative Perry. I would agree with your comments as well, particularly the comments about Representative McCray. She's done a great job representing my hometown of Harpswell. So, so thank you, Representative McCray, for all your great work. And is there any additional discussions, questions from committee members? Seeing none, and we have a motion on the table of ought to pass as amended. Representative Terry.
Sorry. Yes, thanks, Senator Chipman. I just want to, maybe this will be starting a little something new for us, to have Lena do a roll call on this. I think we are, since we're in our second session and moving quicker than maybe we usually do, or than we do in the beginning, and Lena is new to us, perhaps if we do some roll call votes instead of all raising our hand, it might be easier for her to keep track of what we're doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, except that I mean, yeah, we should have another discussion about that. Maybe not at this point, but I mean, we've been fine with that if folks want to do that. But sometimes I don't know how I want to vote, and it's helpful to see how other people are voting. And so if you do roll call, you don't know how other people are voting. So, I mean, we could do a show of hands and a roll call maybe, but just like on this bill, I do know how I want to vote, but sometimes I'm on the fence, and I think some other members may be too, and it may be helpful to see hands up, you know, and so maybe we could have a larger, another discussion about how we take votes at some point, but if it's helpful to
Absolutely.
Lena, I mean, we could vote on this and do the show of hands, and she could also call the names and as well if we'd like.
If you
Terrific.
just do a show of hands and leave them up for a minute, that'll work with me
Okay, great.
Yeah, if everyone
How about
leaves
that?
their hands up- Yeah, leave your hands up and Selena.
for a
can get-
minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Or
you.
I have a better idea is that Senator Chipman could just vote the same way as me every time, and that would be great.
All
Keep
right.
dreaming.
Pardon me, could I ask Representative Lori Gramlich from Old Orchard Beach? I'm sorry I'm late. I'm toggling between a ton of committees today, but what bill are we on, please?
We're
No
on
problem.
the
It's
tobacco bill. It's Representative McCrate's bill, and she's got an amendment to the bill that removes the tax and simply allocates the funding to the Fund for Healthy Maine as it was intended. Essentially,
Thank you very much.
There's a motion ought to pass as amended to accept that amendment with no other changes other than what she's presented. That's been seconded. And do you have any questions or anything, or are you all set? Okay, great. So seeing no other questions. You had your hand up, Julie, briefly. Do you have anything before we vote?
I was just going to mention the possibility of a roll call vote as well before Representative Terry did. Only that if the committee is going to, if it's clear that the committee is going to vote unanimously, holding hands up is good. But if you're going to have a divided revote, it's very hard for the clerk to be able to keep track of who's voting whom when she has to write things down on a piece of paper and look up at the screen. And the boxes on the screen, you all know, you move around from one place to another on the screen. So sometimes it's just really hard to keep track of who's voting how. If everybody's voting the same way, it's not so hard because she knows who's there. But if there's a difference, it helps to have a roll call vote.
Yeah, and if folks can use the reactions button at the bottom of the screen and keep that hand up under reactions until we can ask Lena if you got everybody before we see if folks want to vote another way. I mean, just to make sure nothing gets missed. Representative Steckes.
Thank you. Sorry for the late question, but trying to play a little catch up here, since this bill was from last year. Just a quick question. Where this is going to be completely allocated to the Fund for Healthy Maine, does anybody know, do the folks there that run Fund for Healthy Maine, will they look at this particular bill where they do use funds for multiple purposes, not just tobacco cessation? Will they look at this and actually use 100% of the tobacco tax in that regard? Or is it just going to go into their, their general slush fund and use it however they see fit?
Does anybody have an answer to that? I'm not familiar enough with how the fund works, but I don't know. Do you have any response to that, Representative McCrate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question, Representative Steckes. The bill does what you say. It would determine that the level of funding needed for these programs, which is recommended by the CDC, comes from the tobacco revenue and would be used for this purpose. If there's other funding, then it's up to the department, I would say, but it would determine that for these programs we're talking about today, they would be funded as recommended, in which they haven't been. I hope that's helpful.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Representative Steckes.
Thank you. So Representative, you're comfortable that these monies that we're voting to direct towards tobacco are going to be used exclusively for that?
Well, we're saying it needs to be, and I can promise you I'll be after it and make sure.
Fabulous. That's what I was hoping you were going to say. Thank you.
Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Steckes, I can say I have worked in that arena for about 35 years and was involved in the legislature when the fund initially got developed. And it's been my experience that when funds are dedicated and allocated, particularly for tobacco cessation, they are definitely used in that regard.
That's great.
Okay. Excellent. Well, seeing no further discussion, are we ready to vote? We have a motion of ought to pass as amended. All those in favor, please signify by using the reactions button at the bottom of your screen, raising your hand. If you can keep those up, keep those on. And so Lena can get the vote recorded properly. Representative Bickford, you're in favor? Yeah, okay, great. Looks like all members present are voting in favor, so that appears to be unanimous.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So we'll close the work session on now the 1423.
Thank you, everybody. I just want to say I appreciate all the work on this and the support. Representative Bickford, thanks for making the motion.
Thank you for all your work on this as well. Great. So we've closed that work session. So we'll now open up the work session on LD 798. This is an act to improve the educational opportunity tax credit, sponsored by Senator Pouliot. And we'll have Julie walk us through this bill. I believe Senator Pouliot has an amendment for us as well we'd like to discuss. Take it away, Julie.
Thank you. Bringing up the chart. LD 798, as you mentioned, is Senator Pouliot's bill, carried over from last year. And I know that Senator Pouliot has had a group of people working on changes to the bill over the interim. But there's a lot of information on here about what last year's bill proposed, and I don't know whether it makes a lot of sense for me to go through that or not, or
I
whether
think we
you
should skip
perhaps
it.
prefer to hear from Senator Pouliot with regard to what his proposal is this year. But his proposal, just to briefly summarize, provides a simplified form of changing the credit for individuals. But he's probably in a best position to
that's a good
describe
point.
it than me.
I mean, that the bill, the amendment, I believe, changes the bill quite a bit. So maybe rather than walking us through all that, you can just hear from Senator Pouliot on the amendment and discuss from there.
Yeah, can you all hear me okay? Okay, so if you recall, last session, we had a number of bills that addressed or attempted to make modifications to the Opportunity Maine tax credit program. So we as a committee decided to carry over the bill, and in the interim established a working group, which I led, and it was the membership included the Department of Financial Services, Maine IRS, and then all the members who had bills in that touched on the Opportunity Maine. So we had a great group across the spectrum. We met, I think, 5 or 6 times, and ultimately decided that what we needed to do was simplify the credit substantially by making it fully refundable. So that helps address the equity issue of who can get this and who can't, and make it in the amount of $2,500. And you would get the credit for a dollar for dollar match how much you paid towards student loans, up to $2,500. And the only criterion for, well, there's a few basic criterion for to qualify. 1, you had to be a Maine resident. 2, you had to be employed. And 3, obviously you'd have to be employed to generate income tax liability. And 3, you had to have graduated after 2007. That's it. It's a extreme simplification of the program. I could just explain it to you there in 20 seconds. Right now, the program takes 20 years to explain to people and is very complicated and convoluted. And also, I believe the department is on this call. I just received great news yesterday that meetings with the chief executive and Department of Financial Services Commissioner Figueroa, they've decided to include this in the supplemental budget. So that's huge. And I think it's a acknowledgement of the great work that's been done by all parties. And so I want to thank the department for their involvement right along the way in this, and also all the members who participated in that working group. I think, it's just a great example of utilizing the time to better craft legislation rather than trying to pigeonhole it in committee before we got done. So I'm really excited about the posture of where this at. Again, $2,500 refundable credit. I believe the amount that the administration has put in into the supplemental is $2,000. I believe they're on here to speak to that. I would ask the committee that we continue forward with the $2,500 just to see where it lands, but we know that at least the math has been done to include up to $2,000. And that's about it. The one thing that I think that we want to make sure that we included, Julie, and I think I might have missed this in our back and forth on the amendment, was there was some inability to do one-time payments previously. So if somebody just made a lump sum payment of like $1,500, let's say, we want to make sure that they get qualified, as opposed to currently, I believe it's incremental, monthly payments.
Questions, members of the committee, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Pouliot, two questions. One is, this is just on the interest paid on a student loan, or the entire student loan?
No, it's on any student loan payment for somebody that graduated after 2007. So I think that's a good question, though, Representative Bickford, to illuminate how this would work. Let's say I make equal payments of like $127 a month. That's going to be like $1,400 or $1,500. That's how much I would get for a credit. I wouldn't get the full amount, just it's equal to what you pay.
Yeah.
So essentially what's happening here, let's just cut to the chase. The state of Maine is paying off student loan debt, which I think is tremendous because, as we know, so many people are saddled with debt. When you free that cash up, so to speak, we're going to get it back. Income tax receipts, other things, just lubing the economy,
The second question is, if an individual if the business offers to pay the individual student loan payments, is that prevented?
No, it's kind of a moot point now. And in my opinion, this makes it better because it takes the business out of having to deal with another administrative burden, because it's a refundable credit. So everybody qualifies. A business just has to ask a simple question. Did you graduate after 2007? If the answer is yes, boom, you're in. If not,
Yeah, so if it's considered income to the employee, does that employee still have the opportunity to claim that credit or not?
It's not income. It's a refundable tax credit. So if the employee doesn't have the tax liability, they still can take advantage of this. That was the reason why we tried to include the employers before, because before, many people, if you remember, like Senator Brenner had a bill to try to help us address the farmers.
Yes.
But just making the credit refundable, it's kind of like a panacea in a sense that, it doesn't matter how much you make or what your income tax liability is. We're going to dollar for dollar give you that. And that's where the refundability piece is really key.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Pouliot, I just want to make sure that I'm clear that you are going to ask Julie to adjust that amendment to include lump sums rather than not just incremental payments?
Right.
Okay.
I don't have the amendment right in front of me currently, but I just want to make sure that that is done.
That's allowable. Okay, excellent. And is it all right if we have Ms. Trundy weigh in for a sec, Senator? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wondered if anybody had any additional questions for Senator Pouliot, because I've got a couple of questions I wanted to ask.
Oh, sure. And just note that I will ask the same question of Ms. Trundy about that particular little nugget there. But go ahead, Senator.
So Senator Pouliot, what is the current amount allowed of the credit for the STEM students that are able to get it now? I mean, what are they able to get per year?
Well, it depends on their income tax liability but there is like a refundability piece to theirs as well. And I think the amount is like 6,000 or 7,000 or something. The thing is here, let's just be honest, we're having to rip off the Band-Aid right now and simplify this program. And you are going to get calls and emails from irate STEM recipients who are like, what the heck, this is something that, I get that, but the program is not equitable right now. And you have a lot of folks who are on the lower end of the income spectrum or got their degree in something different than a STEM degree who are getting hosed right now. They're getting nothing. And then these other folks are getting a very generous benefit. And I just don't think it's fair. I think we need to make the program like the same for everybody. And, that's what we're doing with this. And I know that's going to create a financial hardship for some folks, and that I'm not crazy about it. And if the administration wants to put like something else into the supplemental to help with that, then I'm all for it. But we all, I think, have agreed that this program is way too complicated. It's difficult to market, and we're not even able to really use it as a tool because people are all over. And frankly, one of the most challenging things for the department is figuring out who is a STEM degree and who isn't, because it's not very clearly articulated, like what qualifies, and then there's also no requirement for the person to actually be in a STEM field. Like, I know of somebody that was a STEM graduate that opened a daycare, and we need more daycares. That's great, but it's not really STEM related, Yeah. So that hopefully that answers your question.
But I mean, you're saying the current amount is 6,000 or 7,000 for STEM, and I understand the program doesn't cover students in other programs. It's just STEM, but they're currently getting 6,000 or 7,000. If you're a STEM student right now, entitled to get up to 6,000 or 7,000 a year, and now for them, it's going to be quite a reduction to go down to 2,500. It's less than half of what they can get now. That's going to be quite a shocker for them. But the flip side is we're expanding it to more students. And I mean, I'm not crazy about that. In an ideal world, we'd just keep the level at the same amount and expand it to all the students. But obviously, that would come with a larger price tag. So I understand that part of it. The other question I had that I'm concerned about, I guess, a larger concern for me is students that are currently getting the credit. Like they were a STEM student, they graduated, they've signed up for this credit, they just started getting it. And now we're going to reduce it to 2,500. Is there anything in your bill that grandfathers them in, or are we just going to say, okay, even though you went through your education, you got your degree, you signed up, you thought you were going to be getting 6,000 or 7,000, you're employed in Maine, and we're just going to now sort of change the rules in the middle of the game for them, or are they grandfathered in some way? Because that's a big concern for me if we're not grandfathering them in.
Yeah, that goes against the whole premise of simplifying the program. So I hear what you're saying, but I need to find a different analogy, because I used to use the bathwater one, and then somebody said you can't. That's not a good one to use anymore. So I'm aware of that, but I haven't figured out a new one yet. But what I don't want to lose the program for one little cohort of folks. I think that your concern is reasonable, and I share it. But sometimes I think we have to make difficult decisions to make policy better, and this is one of those examples.
Right. I mean, I guess I just wonder if someone had looked into that, like how many STEM students are getting it, what would it cost to grandfather them in?
The department's the department's on the call and may be able to answer that. I will tell you though that in many conversations with them and Commissioner Figueroa and the governor, it's that this particular piece that you've identified here creates a tremendous amount of administrative work and burden for them, because it's very difficult to determine who is qualifying and who isn't for that STEM piece. That's probably one of the biggest time commitments, I would say, and they could speak more to it.
Okay, go ahead. We have questions from Representative Bickford, followed by Representative Matlack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I just want to make a comment, and that is that $25, hang on, I got an old dog that's bothering me here. $2,500 in a tax credit is equal to a person making over $60,000 a year, a single individual with no children. So I don't think $2,500 max is unreasonable, and I just want to throw that out.
Okay. Representative Matlack.
Thank you, Senator. I just have a question for either Senator Pouliot or Ms. Trundy. I was wondering how big a take-up we've had with STEM graduates, and whether we're talking about a lot of people or some people that might be adversely impacted. I personally am very supportive of the bill as written. I think that simplifying is the best way to go. And I would be, I would not be in favor of changing this, only because it's been negotiated all summer, all fall, and everybody seems to be in agreement about this. But I'm just curious as to what the level might be.
I'm not sure. Ms. Trundy might be able to answer
Yeah, maybe
that.
we can hear from Ms. Trundy, and that'd be a good time to hear from you. Welcome.
I'm sorry, Senator. I'm so sorry, Ms. Trundy, but I think Representative Collins may have had a question for Senator Pouliot.
Well, we have.
No.
We had
Okay, sorry, my apologies.
I thought that Ms. Trundy was going to answer the question for Representative Matlack first that she had, and then we go to Representative Collins.
Sure.
Certainly. Thank you very much. I just want to first, before I answer the question, just say thank you to Senator Pouliot for the process that we have gone through on this. The administration is very excited about the work that the group did over the off season and where we've arrived, and the fact that it's going to expand access to this credit and that it is going to radically simplify it. So we're very excited to recognize it in the supplemental. In answer to the question about the current STEM recipients, currently there are about 13,000 taxpayers who take advantage of the credit on an annual basis. I can't tell you, I don't have the number that is of those that are STEM recipients. But part of the thought behind what we have done with this is that this credit will actually, we are projecting it will expand access up to 3 times the current uptake rate. So we may be losing those, some of those STEM students may be receiving a lesser tax credit on an annual basis, but there will be 3 times the number of Maine taxpayers who have student loan debt who will be able to receive a refundable tax credit. And that STEM benefit, which is actually, it's just over $4,000 for a STEM graduate at maximum. And that also is tied to the amount that they are actually paying in student loans. So it's completely dependent upon what they're currently paying. That I apologize, I just lost my train of thought. They're going to have they're going to have access to a $2,500 credit under the senator's proposal in 2000. Otherwise, the median refundable tax credit, I believe, is about $2,000. So, we're talking about kind of outliers who are receiving that maximum amount currently. And for folks who don't have the income to offset against their student loan payments, they're really not able to take advantage of the credit fully. It has a very much reduced value for them.
Thank you. That was one of the points that I recalled, was that because it's based on income, a lot of people can't take advantage of this right now. So that simplifying it was going to allow more people, and that those folks who are currently receiving it won't be greatly negatively impacted, and only a few might be, but this is overall simplifying everybody's ability to access this credit.
We have a question from Representative Collins.
Oh, I was just was trying to respond earlier when Senator Pouliot was trying to come up with the right wording or the right phrase for sort of the spirit of this bill. And I was just going to tell him, we probably should have said, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And that's something that
I love it.
often,
That's my new line, brother. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Thank you.
I had a supervisor that used to say it to me every day in work. So that's how I knew it.
I'm writing it down right now. This is my new thing. You helped me evolve. I appreciate it.
I'll send you an invoice. No, just joking.
So I guess I'd just raise that issue as well, Ms. Trundy, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, but it sounds like there's 13,000 people currently using this in some capacity, and they're not all at the maximum, and you said there's some outliers, but it sounds like there could still be several thousand people that are getting more than what they'll get under this. And has there been any conversation? Because I heard there might be some fix in the works from the administration possibly on grandfathering in folks that are currently getting higher than what this will allow, so that they don't sort of have the rules changed in the middle of the game for them if they're already receiving this.
I'm going to decline to go into any detail today because we're still ironing out those details for inclusion. But we are looking at what the off ramp is from the current credit to the new credit, which will be it will be a new credit that starts anew in 2023.
But there's
and how to make that transition for folks.
But there's some conversation about that that's happening. I mean, it's not like something I just heard from someone that's not. I mean, there's some consideration going on, I guess.
Yes, there is consideration of that going on. Yes.
If I get calls from constituents that say I'm currently getting $4,000 and now all of a sudden it's going to change to $2,500, and I got my degree and thought I was going to be getting this, and now it's being reduced substantially. I just want some assurance that there's at least some consideration going on around a fix for that, because I'm not looking forward to those calls from constituents. But Representative Bickford, I think you had your hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, I like the changes, and I'm going to go ahead for discussion purposes. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion ought to pass as amended.
Second.
We have a motion ought to pass as amended. Further discussion, Representative Perry?
Yes, thank you. I guess it's more of a comment discussion. So if my memory serves me correctly, wasn't this originated by a citizens initiative back when Baldacci was governor? And so I think had this originated in the legislature, we would not have implemented it the way it was, that the complications and the limitations. I know I fully share your concerns, Mr. Chairman, with taking away this benefit from the STEM people, but I certainly understand the complications of identifying who's STEM, who isn't, what they're doing for work. But my good friend Representative Stickus and I were seatmates last year in the IDEA committee, and we had bill after bill after bill, hours of testimony trying to find ways to get a benefit to everyone, and they all felt completely hopeless that we could never get them passed and funded. So I just really applaud the sponsor, Senator, and the working group and the administration for getting us to a place that I question if we'd ever get to. So I will, if it hasn't been seconded, I will second, and if it has, I'll be voting for it shortly.
Okay. Senator Pouliot.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I do want to take a moment to thank Anya. You know, she's been remarkable throughout this process, both her and Dr. Allen making themselves available for the multiple meetings that we had. And frankly, I know how this stuff works, you know. The people that are showing up every day and doing the work have to also be on board for these kinds of things to make their way into supplemental budgets. And so I just want to say thank you to you, Anya, for your help with this effort. And you know, I'm very much looking forward to being able to get this out to folks and help them reduce some of that debt burden. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no additional hands up. I know Mike Allen's with us. I don't know if we want to hear if he has anything for us before we vote or not. Do you have anything for us, Dr. Allen?
No, thank you.
Everything sounds fine to you from what you've heard?
Just here to help if you need any information.
Okay, excellent. Seeing no further discussion, we've got a motion on the table about to pass as amended. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand using the reactions bottom of your screen.
We have to do a roll call on these.
Terrific. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Senator Chipman?
Yes.
Senator Libby is absent. Senator Pouliot?
Yes.
Representative Terry?
Yes.
Representative Collins?
Yes.
Representative Grimlich?
Yes.
Representative Matlack?
Yes.
Representative Perry?
Yes.
Representative Sachs? Is she here?
Absent.
Absent. Representative Stetkus?
Yay.
Representative Bickford?
Yes.
Representative Hanley?
Yes.
and Representative Carmichael.
Yes.
I've got 11 in favor and 2 absent.
All right, so the motion carries. So close the work session on LD 798. And we'll go right into work session on LD 1678. This is an act to support childcare providers and school readiness through tax credits, sponsored by Representative Millette. She is with us, and I know she's been working on an amendment as well. Maybe we'll hear from you first, Julie, and then we'll hear from Representative Millette on the amendment.
Thank you. Yes, bringing up the chart. LD 1678 is an act to support childcare providers and school readiness through tax credits. The bill made quite a few changes with regard to tax credits for individuals, for childcare sites, and for employees at childcare sites. Representative Millette has proposed an amendment which has been provided to you. And I'm going to defer to her with an explanation of her credit, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Of her amendment, rather.
Yeah. And if do you have the amendment, you could maybe put up on the screen as you did for
Yes, I do.
the crates bill, and we can look at that, and we'll hear from Representative Millette. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm juggling a work session in the Education Committee and your fine committee, so just give me 1 second while I get my, okay. Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I do have a proposed amendment that loops in our business partners. I originally had thought about, so let me just back up. This idea came from conference that I attended many years ago in Louisiana, where we learned about a tax credit program that is very similar to what we have in front of us today. And it did also have an element of a business tax credit. In the follow-up analysis that Louisiana did, they found that the participation was really rather lackluster on the business end, but that the other elements had a very positive impact on participation and improvement of quality. So I thought again about putting in the business tax credit when I was approached by the Maine Manufacturers Association. I think we are all now much more acutely aware of how childcare is part of our economic infrastructure. And they very much would like to be partners with us in trying to help families maintain stable childcare and be able to maintain stable employment as well. So what we have before us is a result of the conversations that we've had over the fall and early winter. And I think it will definitely be an important element, and hope that your committee will support this amendment in the bill as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Any questions for Representative Millette? Go ahead, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Millette, my question is, with businesses that provide childcare, so a childcare provider, they're getting a credit also, is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Which is one of the reasons.
Okay, how is that going to lower the cost of childcare for individuals?
Well, there's an element in this bill that addresses the family costs. So this is a multi-pronged tax program. It addresses the family cost. It addresses owners of childcare facilities, and addresses the educators and staff of childcare facilities, as well as our businesses. So it's really trying to wrap around the whole issue.
Okay, I guess when I read through the bill and the amendment, I read a lot of qualifying childcare. Now, some people, many people, will do a small daycare in their home, which most of us used to call babysitters. And if they're not in that quality zone, they're not allowed to get this credit. So, and those are generally the more inexpensive daycares for parents to use. So explain to me why a qualifying, they're already going to be starting preschool at 3 and 4. So what is a qualifying or a quality childcare? Explain that to me and explain why that's singled out as the recipient.
Thank you, Representative Bickford, for that question. It's important to support as many of our childcare providers as possible. And this is definitely keeping in mind family childcare providers as well as center-based. In the new system that Maine is looking to implement, it will be a 5-star system, and star number 1 is license exempt programs in the child care subsidy program. So that will actually get at that population that you are talking about. And you will see that they actually do qualify for 5% of the cost of providing childcare services. So they actually can participate. But we do want to encourage folks to work on strengthening their childcare programs. We really want to make sure that all of our children have equal access to quality programs, because as we know, these ages are the most critical in child development. The more that we can support their early experiences and activities in a high quality nature, the lower expenses that we face later on in life, especially around special education costs, which we all know is a huge burden for our school districts.
Thank you for that. And I guess my concern is I want to help the parents that pay for daycare the most. The daycare providers, when you're getting, $200 per child per week, that can get into some serious dollars. I would be more in favor of protecting the parents rather than protecting the businesses themselves, the daycares and the educators. And you're talking about, it would almost be like school-based. I mean,
Representative Bickford, this is not a school-based. This is actually a complete recognition of the fact that Maine has a very complex child care provider system, and we need to wrap around all of them. And I want to assure you that in the bill, we have increased the support to families. But of course, if we are losing child care operations across the state of Maine at unprecedented levels, because economically, it is not a feasible business option. And people are losing money, not gaining money. And many are forced to do it but they do it because they love their community. They are deeply embedded in their community. They know the people that they're helping. So they're hanging on by their fingernails. And so this is a recognition that, we actually need folks to be running childcare operations in order to provide relief to families. So it's not like we're saying we're only going to support educators and owners. This bill does address the families as well to all the others. And Mr. Chair, I would also just like to remind you that Tara Williams, who is from the Maine Association for Educators of Young Children, is, I believe, in the waiting room and can maybe better address some of these concerns and questions.
Yeah, I think I might have let her in, but I can't see. Maybe Julie, do you mind taking the this off the screens? We can see more people. I can't see everybody. It looks like she's here with us. And Representative Tara, you had your hand up. Do you have any?
I was actually I was going to ask the same thing if Ms. Williams could come in and speak to the state of childcare today. I did hear Representative Bickford talk about babysitters and what used to be babysitters, and nobody likes babysitters anymore. Everybody wants their kids to start learning. And that's the way that the state of the country is going, is that we're educating our kids at a younger age, to help them succeed later on in life. But Ms. Williams, I'm part of a group that Ms. Williams is part of as well here in Gorham. So I would love to hear sort of her thoughts on the state of childcare at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Williams. Good to see you. And yeah, if you'd like to address the committee, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I really appreciated the questions and the points that you brought up, Representative Bickford, as well, because there is a huge part of the state of childcare right now in Maine is the struggle of families to find it, to access it, and to pay for it. And I appreciated how Representative Millett addressed that in this bill, because it really supports families in being able to take on those costs, because now you have in the tax credits in this bill the ability to not only receive a tax credit for your childcare expenses, but to increase that tax credit. One important thing to address as far as who's eligible in this bill, we have in Maine what's called a quality rating system. And as of a few years ago, only about half of our programs were part of that system. And so it would have been a really important concern to say, does this leave out a lot of programs if they're not in it? But we've had a change over the last couple of years where now the first step of the quality rating system is to be licensed. It's that base level of health and safety. Is a program licensed and meeting licensing rules? And over time, not only through outreach and helping programs to join in this quality rating system, but also adding in, particularly with COVID relief funds, our state distributed those COVID relief funds to childcare programs. And part of the eligibility was that you would join in quality rating. So we now have a system in Maine where when you look up childcare programs, they encompass all programs. All programs in Maine fall somewhere between a quality step 1 to a step 4. So when you see the language in this bill saying, do they qualify? Are they eligible? The answer is yes. Whether they're a small program, one woman taking care of 5 children as a licensed family childcare program in a rural part of our state, to the larger centers and Head Starts. They are part of the license system. They are part of the quality rating. So they'll all benefit from this bill. And another really important thing that just addresses why would we in a bill both support the cost for parents and be giving money to childcare providers? It kind of sounds, and I completely understand Representative Bickford's concerns. We hear all the time, this is so unaffordable for parents. They're paying the cost of a, UMaine tuition for childcare, which then can make it sound like these programs must be just pulling in so much money. The reality is this whole business model, this market-based system doesn't work, because it not only puts the cost on the backs of parents who can't afford it, but even bringing in $200 per child, you actually end up, when you work in childcare, you make very low wages. The average wage used to be a little bit above $11 an hour in Maine. We're now at about $14 per hour. So we're looking at about $28,000 per year when you're in childcare. Because the labor costs are high, because you need a certain number of adults with these groups of children, right? You need, with 8 infants and toddlers, you need 2, 3, 4 adults. You can't have one person, usually one woman, taking care of 8 infants. It doesn't work. So the labor costs are high. So I can stop now. I know I've been talking for a while, but just trying to kind of lay out what that landscape looks like, because the costs are high for families and the wages are low for those who work in the field, and the system hasn't worked for a long time. We already had workforce shortages, and now in COVID, it's crumbling. So we're in a pretty dire state of childcare in Maine right now. We've had programs shut down, and the ones that are still open have growing waiting lists, shorter hours. Sometimes they're closing, we've had some who tell parents we're now closed every Friday because we can't be open 5 days a week because of workforce shortages, things like that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for being with us. Representative Bickford, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Williams, that was a very good explanation. I appreciated that. And I do see that, with my grandkids. They have snow days. The provider takes up to 6 weeks a year vacation. There's no place for those children when the daycare provider decides they're going to take a vacation. That's more of a concern for me than having a grading system on quality childcare providers. That just puts government involved in every aspect of our life. And that's my concern. Can you speak to that for me?
Sure. The vast majority of family childcare owners, those that work out of their home, I can try to get some real specific data on this for you, but when we do surveys and look at what types of vacation they take per year, we usually hear that they shut down for about 2 weeks. They'll take maybe 1 week around Christmas and 1 week in the summer. So they usually remain open for the majority of the year. Our home-based family childcare programs are also the ones who are predominantly serving families who need different hours than our centers are open. So they might need to drop their kids off at 5 o'clock in the morning because they work an early shift in manufacturing, or they maybe work a second shift at night. So like there's one provider I know in Skowhegan who she starts her program at 5 a.m. every day. She's closing up, close to dinner. So we're often talking about women who are working 60-hour work weeks to serve children and families, and actually not really taking enough vacation at all for themselves. In centers, it may be a little bit better because you have multiple classrooms and you can try to, in previous times before COVID, get substitutes and other support staff. So you can offer some paid leave that goes beyond kind of those 5 to 10 days. But I think what families have been experiencing the last 2 years that is really hard for them, and it's so hard for all of us, even with me with elementary school children, is that these closures are happening so often due to COVID. It's less about vacation and it's about quarantines, exposures, and all of that. It's just made it a unpredictable, chaotic sometimes atmosphere for families, and it's just what we're dealing with the pandemic. My concern is that if we don't look at policies and funding to stabilize the system, it's not going to get better just because the pandemic ends, because we've lost so many folks opening up childcare programs. I think, again, I can pull the exact numbers, but in the last 10 to 15 years, something like 30% of our family childcare programs in Maine have closed. And all of Maine relies on these small home-based providers, but particularly rural Maine does. So when we see more programs shutting down and not opening, we have to find how to support in some way the stability of the system. And this bill is very thoughtful in I like how you used the word multi-pronged approach. When I look at it, it really does that. And I've been on the phone just in the last 2 weeks with 3 different employers in Maine, in rural parts of Maine, who want to expand their businesses. And they called me to say, what can I do to support? Should I open an on-site childcare? Should I offer vouchers to my employees? Should I do grants to programs? And I said to all of them, there is a bill coming in taxation you should pay attention to because it has tax credits for all of this. So let's talk about that.
Thank you. And can I just follow up real quick, Mr. Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks. Ms. Williams, how will this reduce the cost of childcare to parents?
Right now, as a parent in Maine who has childcare costs, there's a federal tax credit that you can get, as well as a state tax credit. One of the pieces about the state tax credit is that, and I would need to probably defer to Representative Millett or others to make sure I get it accurate, but from my own experience also as a parent receiving this credit, parents are able to get a higher credit for having their child in a highest quality rating system. it did not, in current language, give parents a higher credit for other quality levels. So when you look at the language in this bill, it's basically saying you will get a good tax credit as a parent that helps you pay for childcare costs. It goes through, when you look at it, when it says things like step 1, step 2, step 3, steps 4, this means that no matter what type of childcare program your child goes to, you are going to benefit from this. And the great part about seeing that you get a higher tax credit when your child goes to a higher quality rating system is that for parents who want to access those higher quality systems, the cost is often higher. And here's the main reason for that. To attain the highest quality in Maine, you have to hire teachers with a bachelor's degree, which means you have to pay them more. And in turn, right now, to run this system, that means you have to charge parents more. So the reason this tax credit bill works so well is it's saying we know that to get in the higher quality rating systems, the costs are higher for everybody. So you'll get a higher tax credit as the provider, the childcare provider. For that quality rating, you also get a higher tax credit as a parent because the costs are higher. So it addresses how the system works.
Excellent. Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, any additional discussion on the bill? Would someone like to make a motion on the bill? Representative Terry?
I'd like to make a motion to pass, ought to pass as amended.
Second.
We have a motion made by Representative Terry, ought to pass as amended, seconded by Representative Gramlich. Additional committee discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead, Representative Millett.
thank you so much, Senator. I do want to point out that I believe I made an error in the amendment where I referenced the existing quality rating system, whereas the bill actually is addressing the one that's coming. They're making a slight tweak in terms of going from a 4 to a 5. So I would just ask the analyst to make sure that the amendment reflects what we were intending in the original bill. And so there's consistency. Thanks. And I apologize to the committee for that error.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions. Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you. My question is, concern actually is I see this rating system as you're creating a class system where you're going to isolate lower income people from better care, better response, and better response from this bill. I find that a little troubling when I see you have to jump through different hoops, financial hoops, to get to a different level of care and reimbursement. Also, I mean, the way it's structured, this is, you're forcing and funneling every child and every parent into government-run programs. The government is just short of giving birth to these children now. And so I find it a little troubling where we're handing over more and more of the care of our little children to the government overreach. I'm a little, and again, I think the tier system is very, you're going to set up a competing class system with this type of legislation. I have some real problems with this bill.
Okay. Are you asking, want anybody to respond to that, or are you just making comments, Representative Hanley? Okay. Representative Stutkis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sort of, trying to hold back on some of my comments, being new to the committee. I don't want to be that guy, but living here in rural Maine my entire life, what I've seen on the ground, knowing multiple folks in the daycare business or babysitting business, as us old people still call it, where several of them have actually been run out of business. And I think if we had the ability to look back into history, once the politicians and bureaucrats in the government started piling on the regulations and the licensing fees, and the inspections, and then the arbitrary mandated government wage increases, I think there'll be a direct correlation in the massive closings of all these services. So one of the things in my experience in the legislature so far was dealing with a lot of professional licensing issues. And one of the things that we've found historically, not only in this state, but around the country, is as we add more and more barriers to professional licensing, it shuts more and more people out of that particular industry, as well as greatly increases the costs that are passed along to those people who would hire them, which in this case would obviously be the parents looking to have their children taken care of during the day while they're at work. And what I've heard about this bill, the small amount that I've been involved here today, is, just goes to prove what the economist Milton Friedman said years and years ago, was 90% of what government does is trying to fix what government has done. We've created this situation by piling all this stuff on these folks, and now we're going to take tax dollars and try to throw it at the problem that we've created. I don't see this as being the solution. The solution would be is to walk back some of the things that have created this situation. And those of us that have been elected to do this, we have the power to do that. So I can't support this. Thank you.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with a lot that's being said. I got 11 grandkids. Many of them, I can't say that really. They didn't use a lot of daycare. Some of them are homeschooled, but anyway, I think the important thing for us to do is to make sure that the same level of education is available to all levels of students. And I don't see that this bill moves in that direction. I'd really, I don't think your financial standing should have a bearing on the level of care that you'll be able to, and education that you provide to your kids. So with that said, I guess I have reservations with this bill as well.
All right. Additional committee discussion or questions?
Senator Chipman.
Yeah, go ahead, Senator Pouliot.
So this is a really tough one for me because, as the former co-chair of the Children's Caucus, I know the value of access to high quality early childhood education. The data is irrefutable as to how much this benefits our society, and how much money it saves us down the road in reduction in incarceration, improved results within the public school system, and so on. I'm struggling with this one because I don't know that it's the right way for us to really address the issue. And I know that myself and Representative Millett would certainly disagree on that. This is her bill and everything, but I'm having a hard time getting behind this one just because of the overall structure of it. And, I think that we're struggling in Maine right now with access to facilities where people can access high quality education. And I don't know that this is really going to get us there. I would rather us figure out ways to fund the creation of those facilities and or the amount of money that is being paid to some of the folks that work in those facilities kind of in a more direct way. Because the problem here is that, we want every child to have access to high quality early childhood education. And that just doesn't exist in our state right now. We can't deliver that. We don't have the capacity to. And I'd rather focus on increasing that capacity in a more direct way than this tax credit. And so I think, I'm open to thoughts from the sponsor and others, but I can't really seem to get behind this as the way to really move the needle.
Seeing no other hands up, I'm going to be supporting the bill and the motion that's been made. I want to thank Representative Millette for bringing us the bill. It may not solve all the problems we've discussed today, but I think it will definitely help a lot in keeping businesses open. We've had a crisis across the state with the closing of childcare businesses. So I think the credit will help keep businesses open that are currently providing these services and help prepare our kids for success in the future. So I'm definitely going to be enthusiastically supporting the bill and the amendment. Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things I would like for Representative Millette to respond to Senator Pouliot. I just sort of wanted to just address the developing of a class, a classist thing that Representative Hanley had mentioned earlier. That some of these programs that are for the lowest income people have the highest star rating as it is because of all of the school that those folks have to go through. And, some of the most intimate settings have the lowest rating because there's no necessarily reason to have for some of those providers to have more of an incentive to lower the prices of their folks. So I think I would have to argue that point that it doesn't necessarily, I don't think it creates that at all. But I would really like to hear Representative Millette's response to Senator Pouliot to see if she has something that would help him understand better what the program would do.
Oh, Mr. Chair, if that's okay with you.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Representative Millette.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you, Representative Terry. And good morning, Senator Pouliot. Good morning. So, I think as you said, you're acutely aware of how critical our work is around trying to make sure the most number of children in our state have equal access to quality early childhood experiences and development. Our military, our law enforcement, our business communities have all rallied year after year after year to try to get us to pay more attention to this issue and to make investments. And in fact, the Maine Manufacturers Association saw this as such a critical need that they came to me and asked to be a partner. Louisiana's program that I have studied to inform this bill really had a remarkable impact. It worked. And it's very popular and it's still in existence. It's been evaluated several times now and they've made a few tweaks here and there, but it's sustainable and it's working to the point where there are other states, including Colorado, that are looking at implementing similar. And I would just, the Children's Caucus last year hosted a session of Maine child care providers. Those are family child care providers and centers. I think it's important to listen to what they have to say. They're the ones who are on the ground and really know the challenges, what's really proven to be so difficult for them to maintain their operations, to stay open for families. And the number one issue that they talked about was, economic sustainability, the cost of running the daycare for work and competing for workforce. The wages that they can pay their, I like to call them educators. These are not babysitters. And I think if they were here, if they're listening, they're going to be pretty insulted by that. They do a lot more than that. They are really focused on making sure that these children have quality experiences and are aided in their development as young children. And they have said over and over again, and it was really quite difficult to listen to because it was very clear how we have failed them, that they are giving their all to try to stay open. They're losing their workers to places like Arby's or other local franchises because they, as businesses, cannot offer benefits because their economic model is so thin. So this bill is all about trying to make that economic model work for them and our families. And our owners and our workers and our businesses, because I think if we're going to seriously try to address problems, we need to do it holistically. One-offs just are not going to make a big enough impact. So I recognize that there are many who've already made their decisions this morning, but I do hope that going forward, everyone will take another look at some of the, hopefully you've kept those links. I'll share with the committee that particular caucus meeting so you can have a chance to hear from the early child care programs themselves about the challenges that they're facing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Representative Bickford. You're on mute, Representative Bickford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Millette, I like the idea behind this bill. I really do. I have a problem with the tiers. Daycares get penalized because they don't have people with bachelor's degrees working for them. If you have a daycare with 7 children and you have the owner and one employee, both with a bachelor's disease, I didn't mean that, degree, then you're looking at $80,000 minimum or more to provide that daycare for 6 students, 7 students. You can't possibly charge $200 a week. You have to charge more than that. All you're doing is you're driving the poor people, the poorest among us, from accessing quality childcare because you have all these steps involved, and they're not going to get the rewards because they can't afford tier 5. How many other states, this is my question now, how many other states besides Louisiana have implemented this?
Go ahead,
I think Tara, Ms. Williams could actually give you a number, but this is actually ubiquitous across the country. This is something that is an established best practice. And I would say this bill is not penalizing. This bill is recognizing the higher costs that are involved at the higher rating level. We are providing support for every single level. But we're also need to recognize that if you are making investments in your childcare operation, in bringing in folks that do have higher education degrees, then that must be recognized in this economic model. But there's no penalization going on. And I see that Ms. Williams has taken herself off. If it's okay with you, Senator, I'd love to have her respond to how many other states.
Yeah, that'd be great, Ms. Williams, if you'd like to respond to that, and also about the question Representative Terry had about the different sort of classes, that's been alluded to, the classes tier system that's been set up. That'd be great.
Yeah. Nope. Yes, I can do that. So tax credits have been implemented in about a handful of states. Nebraska, Louisiana are the 2 that have had it for a longer time. I think the more important point about it would be that there's growing interest in it because of the success that the states have had who have done it. Not that it's happening all over the country, but that it's being seen as an important model that works. They just did a kind of comprehensive report on different policies around supporting the stability of the field, of the sector, and how that's done. And tax credits was held up as one of the ways to address the different facets of the childcare market, the supporting families, parents, and the programs. What is common all over the country and in the majority of states is what's called a quality rating system. It's designed to help parents understand lots of different things about what programs are doing to focus on early learning and nurturing safe care when they pick a childcare program. And so the most important thing is the licensing rules. I know there's been some concerns expressed by the committee about a couple members of the committee about licensing rules. They really have ensured a level of health and safety for children across our country, especially our youngest and most vulnerable children who can't often even yet speak for themselves about the environment they're in all day while their parents are working. So licensing rules are very important. The other things, I mentioned degrees, but there's a lot in these quality systems that just help programs to connect better and engage with parents because they become partners with parents in the care of their toddlers and preschoolers. So it's about, having not a formal assessment, nothing like that, but just observing the child's development and sharing that with parents. Almost like when you think of parent-teacher conferences for older children, it's components like that, helping programs to focus on engaging learning experiences, exploring the outdoors with children, how you share that information with parents about their development and early learning. And that's what helps you move up the quality rating system. There is, I think, actually what bills like this do that look at those quality tiers is to actually create a more equitable system to make sure that every parent has access. And Representative Terry, you actually brought up something that's important to know. Because of childcare subsidies and other funding streams like Head Start, we actually do have some of our most low-income families accessing some of our highest rated programs across the state. So I hope I didn't take us off on a tangent by mentioning degrees, but I think it's also important to note that there are many predominantly women who work in this field who really value that they were able to earn a credential or an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, that they really took as part of their career path time to get training and learning around child development and early learning. And so it's seen a lot in our field as something to be proud of and not something that is holding people back.
Excellent. Representative Hanley.
Yes, thank you. Well, having been a parent of 4 children and a grandparent of 9, my wife and I actually babysit all 9 of those grandchildren from birth till the end of school. And we did it year round. And, we gave feedback to their parents about what each child did every day of their lives. So, I have a degree in nothing except in life. So these things aren't insurmountable. And it isn't necessary that government be involved in all of this stuff. But I have to go back to my argument earlier about creating a class system. And it's, when people look for daycare, they shop by locality and they shop by price. And it's obvious as I read the structure of the amendment that it's designed that the rich get richer because wealthy areas, wealthy people will have better chances to buy into, if I might use that word, the best system, the best childcare systems. And this program simply rewards the most wealthy with even more help. And so that's why I have a real problem with, as I see a class system being set up. And, children need nurturing. And from the age of, birth to 5 years, the most nurturing thing they can have is their parents in their own home. And I know that's just not a reality today, but so you try to do the best you can. And that's, that's why we volunteered to do that for our children, our grandchildren. But we didn't get this, and this bill wouldn't assist my wife and I doing that at all. So again, you're missing a lot of people, I think, but you're also creating a real class system here. I'm not going to support this legislation. But thank you for your testimony.
Ms. Williams, while you're with us, it looks like you've gone off here. I just wanted to ask, so am I correct that you said that they've implemented a similar system in Nebraska and Louisiana and a number of other states? This is kind of the way other states are going with what this bill seeks to do?
There are the thing about when we look at how states try to support childcare is that there's a bunch of different strategies that have been tried. This is one that, while it hasn't been tried by a large majority of the states yet, the ones that have found great success. So it's not more than, I have to look up the exact numbers, it's not more than 5, but it's growing in interest because of the results that they've had. A lot of states who've implemented support, the more common support that we have seen has been a wage supplement program. What I think this bill does that is different and more comprehensive is states that have looked to implement a wage supplement program have only tackled one part of the issue. They've looked at offering, a stipend to the folks who work in childcare, but not necessarily addressing the cost for families. This tax credit bill looks at the cost for families, the cost for programs, and how we can build public-private partnerships by involving businesses. I think the part that I didn't give a number to that I do have is how common is it for a state to have a quality rating and improvement system, or called QRIS, which this bill aligns with. It's in 49 states and the District of Columbia. So almost the entire country is using this type of system as part of the way they structure childcare.
Great, thank you for that. And I'm glad you mentioned some of the other states because, Louisiana is typically thought of as a little more conservative state. Nebraska is the only state in the country with a nonpartisan legislature. And I guess my point in mentioning that is, childcare issues like this have at least recently been finding, pretty good bipartisan support. And I had hoped we might get there on this bill, but it doesn't look like we will from the comments made. But I think that's unfortunate that we can't all at least come around and get on the same page on something like this. But Representative Bickford, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just have a question about what success looks like with this bill. Describe the success that Louisiana had. We can say it's been successful, but what is success? Either Representative Millet or Ms. Williams can describe what that specific success would be and how it would impact all ranges of parents.
Representative Millet, would you like to respond to that, or do you have other comments to offer?
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, I'm trying to bring up the report now, and I think I may have linked to it in my testimony, but I apologize if I didn't. So first, the quality rating system is actually completely designed to eliminate class system. It's designed to allow all families to access quality care. So if you think about it, if you're a family and you wanted to get a 5-star childcare program, your tax credit actually goes up. And so you are experiencing less of a burden. And frankly, without that, families who are wealthy don't need that tax credit. They can afford it right off the bat. So this whole framework is designed to provide equal opportunity and access to quality child care. From the top of my head, what Louisiana saw was an increase in the number of child care providers and an increase in a movement in the quality ratings of the child care operations, as well as the certification of the child care workers. So it was multifold and really caught the attention of a lot of folks because of that. It actually did move the dial pretty darn quickly compared to other approaches. And Representative Bickford, I will do my best to find that analysis for the committee and forward that to you.
Great. Thank you, Representative Millet. Additional committee discussion or questions?
I'm sorry, Representative Bickford was saying something, but I think he's on mute.
Can I just follow up? That sounds great. I like hearing that. How is this program means tested for the parents of the children's? You know, if my wife and I are making $300,000 a year, we really don't need this tax credit, but it's going to be available to us. Is that correct?
Representative Millet, do you have a response?
Representative Bickford, you're keeping me on my toes. I was just in the thick of the Louisiana document. Now I've got to go back to the bill to respond to that. It's working off the federal tax credit. So I believe that that is the framework that is utilized. And I'm hopeful that Ms. Jones could maybe respond more directly to that question.
Okay, you're slowly pulling me in. I want to tell you that.
Well, let's keep talking then. Bipartisan support. Do you have a response to that, Julie? Do you know?
I do not have that. But what was the question? I'm sorry, I was looking up something else.
That's okay. It's a means test. Is there a means test to see what for parents on who is available, who is able to take the credit? And I believe, yeah.
The federal credit? I don't think so. I think it's available to all parents on an equal basis.
And in the state credit that we're attempting to do here, would that be for the same, would that have the same threshold? I'm just looking, I'm going to look at it
The
myself.
state credit right now is a percentage of the federal credit.
Right.
And the bill maintains that for parents.
Okay.
But it does provide a different percentage of the federal credit based upon the quality of care.
Right.
The higher quality care gets a higher percentage of the federal credit.
Okay. Additional committee discussion? Seeing none, we've got a motion on the table. I believe it's been seconded as well. About to pass as amended. Is that your understanding, Representative Terry?
Correct.
Okay, great. So it looks maybe we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand using the reactions.
Sir, weren't we advised that we need to say out loud whether or not we are voting yes or no?
We can do that. I don't think that's correct. I want to double check that, but we can still raise our hands and do a roll call as well. I guess is what we said we do at the beginning of the meeting and do both, but we can double check that for the next meeting and have another discussion about it, I guess. But
okay, I do believe that's on the list of to-dos that the chairs get at the beginning of the session, saying that people need to be viewed and be able to be heard in order to vote.
right, but that doesn't mean they have to like verbally do a roll call vote. I mean, that's something some committees do, and we've never done that. I don't think we have to do it that way. We can do it with show of hands as well, but if we were in the committee room, we'd be doing a show of hands. We never did roll calls there except on confirmations, but at any rate, let's do a show of hands and a roll call as well, just to cover all the bases. All those in favor, to signify. And you want to call the names, I guess, Lena?
Senator Chipman,
Yes.
Senator Louise not here, Senator Pouliot,
No.
Representative Terry,
Yes.
Representative Collins,
Yes.
Representative Grumlich, she already said yes. I saw her earlier. Representative Matlack,
Yes.
Representative Perry,
Yes.
and Representative Sachs is not here. Representative Stekis,
Yay.
Representative Bickford,
Not quite ready. Still a no. Sorry.
Representative Hanley
No,
and Representative Carmichael.
I'd love to, but no, not the way it is right now.
Thank you.
So that, I believe the motion carries. Is that right? Can you give us a count, Lena, maybe just to see where we are?
I'm on mute. There is 6 to ought to pass as amended.
And then how many were ought not to pass? Or how many
5.
voted? 5. So the report for the 5 against would be just ought not to
Ought
pass.
not to pass. Ought not to pass. Thank you.
All right. So the motion carries ought to pass as amended. There's a few members that can still vote that weren't here through the proper method to do that. So I believe that concludes all of our work sessions scheduled for today. Do you have anything for us, Julie, that we need to know about before we adjourn our work for today?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anything with you, Representative Terry? Are we all set?
Nope, all set.
All right. Well, that concludes our work today for the Committee on Taxation. Great to see everybody. We will see you Tuesday at 10 o'clock.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.